Welcome to this but already last conversation that we will provide you today. Here in the premises of Pierre Cartier's exhibition, that is GEMS exhibition, that is held during those now in Paris, at the Art of Paris. Actually, at the Jardin des Plantes, which is the largest botanical garden here in Paris, France. So I am François Farge, mineralogist, full professor at the museum, because the museum is not only a museum but also a university. I'm also the curator of the French National Collection of Gems, but more importantly, today, I am the curator of this wonderful exhibition, Pierre Cartier's GEMS exhibition here. And this broadcast has been made possible with a partnership of École of Jewelry Art that is also located in Paris, but also in Hong Kong. I must also say that I'm the curator of this exhibit together with Liz MacDonald from Van Cleef & Arpels. In that exhibit that is unfortunately closed because of a pandemic, we still hope to have it reopen anytime soon. We know it's going to be extended until August 22nd, and maybe thanks to the heat of a summertime, maybe we will be, you will be able to come to us, to Paris, and to visit it before it's shutting down for good. In that Pierre Cartier's exhibit, you see showcase of jewelry, minerals. We have tried to offer you 550 different objects, ranging from beautiful crystals, faceted gemstones, and magnificent objets d'art, including jewels, but also different type of furnitures and sculptures made out of gemstones. And among all those treasures that are very seldomly seen in exhibition, there is a special section devoted to my very favorite, that is the history of the French blue diamond. The French blue diamond is a very exceptional diamond by many aspects, but unfortunately this diamond has disappeared for good in 1792 during the French Revolution. But there has been since a very intriguing and interesting subject of fundamental research for me, and we have discovered through science and through archives many new information, many new unsuspected information about this diamond. So maybe some of you have already seen conference from us concerning that subject, but every time we give a new conference, including that one today, we try to provide you new information that has not been published before. And that's going to be the case tonight. And to help me in that effort, I am so delighted to introduce you today Ghislain Aucreman, who is art historian and teacher at the École, who is going to give us many information concerning the history of that diamond. Hello, Ghislain.
Hi, François. Hi, everyone. It is my pleasure also to be in this fabulous exhibition, in the core of it, and to be with you today or tonight, depending on where you're from, to talk about this fabulous topic, the blue diamond of the Sun King. Before we start, a few housekeeping details, if I may. This talk will last about an hour, with in the end a Q&A moment to answer your questions. During the talk, you'll be assisted with our dear colleague and friend Inesita Gay-Ackel, who is professor and art historian at l'École also, and who will be there to collect your questions and send them to us in order to make sure that we will be able to answer in the very ending. So, hi, François.
Hi,
good to see you today.
How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very happy to be in this fabulous exhibition I just said, and happy today to talk about the history of the French blue diamond.
Okay, let's get started, if you wish. So you have shown, you have talked about the, can we see the, we don't, yes, thank you, the image back, yes. So, sorry, just technical time, just a few moments. Okay, so that's the menu for today. Sorry about that. It won't happen anymore.
Technical things, it always happens in life.
Yeah.
That's the menu, perfectly said. On the menu today, we're going to talk about things you might already have heard, but also lots of updates, because this is the history of analyzing such topic. It's always improved and new discoveries are made, aren't
That's correct.
And for this, we're going to make a sort of summary of everything that we used to know on the first chapter, What a Story, because it's a long story with fabulous elements. Then on the second chapter, we'll talk about the shape, the color, and simulation to understand properly what was precisely and scientifically this diamond. Then in terms of techniques and also symbolics, the third chapter will really enter in the why the person you see on the left-hand side, King Louis XIV, really enjoyed this diamond and what was behind it as a message to the people that were supposed to see it. And then, on the last chapters, a new replica and a second showcase will understand the very last current updates about this fascinating adventure.
Yes, thank you, Ghislain. Beautiful. So I'm thrilled to know more about the story of that diamond. So it started during the 17th century in Europe, more specifically in France, and especially after one French traveler has visited India.
Indeed, absolutely. Maybe some of you have attended. Weeks ago, there was a talk that, François, you gave with Cécile Lugan, our colleague at l'École, who is a researcher and professor also, who worked on the history of this wonderful man, a traveler, an art a merchant, a dealer, coming from Paris to India, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. Tavernier was quite one-of-a-kind man, bringing some fabulous things, luxury goods and diamonds in particular, during the 17th century to the great figures, including the royals, Louis XIII and his son, King Louis XIV. What is fabulous, to make the long story short, it is that this man, in 1668, came back from his 6th voyage, the last journey, the last trip he did to India, with hundreds, not to say thousands of diamonds.
1,183 to be more accurate.
That's a lot. And
a lot of diamonds, yes.
Among them, there was 20 of the most important diamonds that were depicted on the illustration you can see on your screen. It was in December the 6th of the year, 1668. And what is interesting is, on the large document, it's the picture of the diamonds seen on 3 sides on the top left corner. And you see the detail up there. This is the blue diamond. At the time, you can read 103/10 carat with another spelling of carat, but it means how many carats today?
Today it would correspond to 115 modern metric carat of pure blue diamond of absolute best quality. It's just something we cannot imagine today.
So this is a one-of-a-kind gemstone, the most important blue diamond in the world at that time, and probably not only at that time in history. And this piece would be purchased by King Louis XIV. The Sun King wanted this piece in his collection. The king, and you might know it, was an art lover, he was a garden lover, he was a diamond lover and collector. In his education, diamonds will be important, but what is tricky is that there's no such thing as a precise representation of the diamond in the iconography of his reign. This is why there's the question mark with the blue outline, and that will be part of the thing we'll try to answer step by step in this talk. But he will include the piece in the collection of the royal diamonds.
After having this piece to be recut down to 69 carats, but that's the problem. We have a description of a diamond, but we don't have any illustration, as you mentioned. So we don't know exactly the shape, except just the weight and maybe some aspect of the color. But you will see it's going to be quite confusing.
What is interesting is that a 69 carat diamond was huge also after being cut, and the next reign, after the death of King Louis XIV, his great-grandson, King Louis XV, his successor, got the throne. He was not particularly a diamond collector, but he really helped the craftsmanship at the time, and to celebrate his inclusion in an order of chivalry as a noble warrior, he wanted this huge decoration, which is there, which was the Order of the Golden Fleece. No worries, if you've never heard about it, we'll give you lots of details in the final chapters. But what is interesting is that you can see in here the king, and one of the only illustration known at the time, from 1762, by Mr. Puget in color.
Yeah, and we must say, so that you get an idea of the size of a jewel, it's about 16 centimeter height. So it's a big jewel, it's something as big as that. So it's really big.
He definitely wanted to have something visible to promote his figure, as you can see. The piece will be included in the royal jewels, and you can see we illustrated right down there, there was the position when you can fit this blue diamond we're talking about today.
Yes, so with that illustration, we have the impression that the diamond was recut as an octagonal gemstone, but it's, you see, the representation is very vague, there's no blue color, it's very unprecise.
Yeah, absolutely. What we know is that the piece will stay in the inventory under the next reign, King Louis XVI. But the piece will, of course, arrive until the French Revolution. And we all know what happened to the king during the Revolution. But let's just give you more details. In 1792, thieves came into what we call in French the garde-meuble, which was the storehouse, the national storehouse of furniture, precious objects, and of course, the jewels. And most of the jewels were stolen by thieves at the time. Many of them were found back, but not the blue. What is important is that the thieves were taken and they decided to behead the thieves properly in front of the place where we're supposed to be organized the robbery. If you look at the picture, you can see there's someone going to be beheaded, and you can see a large Greek-inspired architecture in the back. Such like 3 facades of temple. This is the third from left to right, which will be the location of the national storehouse at the time. This square that was built under the reign of King Louis XV would become the square of the Revolution, positioning in the center this machine called guillotine to cut off the head of the thieves and soon of the king, of the queen, Queen Marie Antoinette, and then of some of the revolutionists.
And now this square is called Place de la Concorde.
Indeed. They tried to take off all the death connection that was in the past, hopefully.
So except the guillotine, all the other buildings are still there. So you can visit, next time you are in Paris, you can visit those buildings. They are marvelous.
As I said, most of the gemstones were found back, but not our blue. And that's the beginning of the big mystery moment. For over 20 years, no mention of anything. Above 20 years, there will be the appearance of another diamond, smaller, 45 carats, darker, apparently, according to what we knew, different faceting, but interesting because it's a big blue also at the time. It was purchased by a British banker called Mr. Hope. Mr. Hope will give his own name to the diamond called the Hope diamond at the time, but no connection was precisely done at the moment. It will remain in his family until one of his nephews will sell it to have some money. And it will have an adventure from one hand to the other until a jeweler called Mr. Pierre Cartier, one of the legendary brothers of the 3 brothers of Maison Cartier at the time. Pierre Cartier was on the American side, I would say. He was married to an American woman. He was introduced in the American society, and he was a great businessman, and he knew the perfect person who would love to have such peace. The lady you can see on your screen was named Evelyn Walsh Mclean. From Washington, D.C., she had a huge collection. She loved gemstones, she loved jewels, and she would purchase the gem with a precise idea that Pierre Cartier told her a story. The story with lots of legends, the story of a curse. All the people that had the diamonds had big issues, problems, apparently, according to what Mr. Pierre Cartier said. And she was really interested in it. We even know that in the contract, she accepted to have the diamonds at the condition that in the next 6 months of the purchase of the diamond, Cartier was supposed to reimburse her if she had any curse. That's part of the legend. What's interesting is that she had the diamond in her collection, and then things happened to her family. She will pass it on to Mr. Harry Winston, the great American jeweler, who will give it to the Smithsonian institution in Washington, D.C., where the Hope Diamond on the Cartier mounting, as you can see, is today one of the most visited artworks in a museum in the world. It's the second most visited piece after Mona Lisa, the painting by Leonardo da Vinci in Paris.
According to French.
Indeed, yeah. Well, French, we're supposed to be proud of it, aren't we? So, what do we know about what happened to the diamond at the time? And what do we know about what the diamond was supposed to be positioned at the moment? Here we have two illustrations, one which is Puget in 1762, who was a jewelry designer, an ornamentist, who designed what was supposed to happen to the diamond at the moment. And then we had 100 years later, Mr. Babst, from a great family of jewelers. He was French, and he served the jewels of the crown. When the jewels of the French crown were sold in 1887, he wrote a book published 2 years later, so 1889, and you can see they're not the same. And that's the problem. History was inconsistent. Correct.
Yes, it was really interesting to see a new iconography that appeared in France during the 19th century. So nearly 1 century after the jewel has been stolen. So it was quite a revelation at this time. So people were not too much intrigued because there was so much detail in the Babst drawing, as you can see in the right, as compared to the Puget drawing that is so basic, I shall say. So everybody took the design, the drawing from Babst as granted. And if you pay attention to where the French blue diamond was supposed to be located, according to the archives, you see that on the left side we have an octagonal stone, and on the other side you have the jewel seen from the front and from the back, with a stone that is triangular. So we see two different types of stones. That was really intriguing, but because the drawing by Babst was so detailed, people considered it was really the true one. But still, actually, until recently, we couldn't figure out, Ghislain, the exact shape of this diamond.
And that was the problem, because no precise description of it was included in the archives. We had two competitors at the time. The first one was the American one, the Hope Diamond, which we have already mentioned in his Cartier mounting, 45.52 carats. But there was another option. The other option was called the Russian one. It's funny because we used to say it was the Cold War for this affair, because one American against one Russian, pretty much the same amount of carats, 42.5, called the Turchenko, today the Moirod blue. And the big question was which one would be the one, but we needed something to precisely be more advanced in the research.
Yeah.
And this will happen years later, in 2007, inside this drawer.
Yes, exactly. This drawer, I opened it a little time after I arrived at the museum as the head curator of all the gems and mineral collections. And I didn't know much things about diamond, except that, like any scientist would knew, that is, it's made of carbon, it's precious, and so forth. But I was not specialized at all in diamonds, faceted diamonds, or even historical diamonds. So then I opened the drawer for diamonds. So in that drawer, you see in the center some rectangular boxes with black and white backgrounds. And in the black section, you see a white spot. Those are diamonds from the collection because all the others are not diamonds. They are fluorite, rock salt, and some others that are grouped together in that drawer. But then I was very intrigued by this small sample that was by far the largest diamond of the collection. But when I handled it, because the color was so weird for a diamond, I understood it was not diamond but lead. So I was very intrigued by this object that was, according to the label, supposedly a lead cast of a diamond, but we had no much information. But Ghislain was very intrigued by the beauty of the shape of that precious stone. And to me, we were very far from the modern round brilliant that we see in most jewels today. I thought this diamond was very unusual, unusual faceting. And then I purchased books on famous diamonds. And then I got, after a couple of days, the answer that, in fact, it was the only model known and of this mythic diamond that disappeared in 1792. And by chance, it was not just a drawing, it was a 3D model.
But the thing is, to make the analysis, you need to compare properly side by side with the other diamond, in particular the Hope.
Yes, so that I did something that I shouldn't have done in theory, but it was needed for the science. So in fact, after all, it was a good idea. So I put the lead cast in my pocket and bring it to the Smithsonian Institution, where Jeffrey Post, the head curator of those collections, was very interested to learn about, and he dismounted the Hope diamond from the Cartier jewel, and we put them together, and it was a very special moment. As you can imagine, I must confess that I tried to have the lead cast touching the blue diamond so that the lead cast could absorb the blue diamond nature. It didn't work out, unfortunately, but it was very interesting because we could test the possibility of having the Hope diamond being the avatar of a stolen French diamond. And as you can see with those red lines, it sounds at first glance that it was much likely the case. And in fact, the Moawad blue, as beautiful that diamond is, was unfortunately a bit too long and not wide enough to fit within the lead cast of a French blue diamond.
So the answer was the Hope was the last version of what used to be the French blue.
At first glance, but as scientists, we needed to do a little bit more.
And this is what we're going to see in our next chapter, because both analysis of the shape and the color will be necessary to prove it.
Exactly. So this time I went to Antwerp, and because at this time at the museum we didn't have a scanner to do this type of job. So I went in Antwerp, thanks to the Matrix Diamond technology company. I brought the lead cast there, and it was scanned with that machine, as you can see. And the machine is taking picture of a diamond, of a lead cast, I should say, taking picture of lead cast for every little rotation of the object, and all those pictures, more than several thousand, were compiled and digested by the computer so that we could get at the end, and after a lot of efforts, because it's not that simple, we could get a 3D model of a lead cast, and we could retrieve all the original facets from the period of Sun King, when this diamond was faceted.
So this will allow you to make a comparison between the 3D of the lead cast and the 3D of the Hope.
Yes, a similar, not exactly the same operation was done for the Hope diamond, but something very similar, so that we could compare both 3D models with more details as compared to what we have shown a few minutes ago. So you see the comparison of both. The Hope diamond is in light blue, and the French blue diamond is in white. And you see that not only from the front, but also from the side view, from the thickness point of view, there's a very good match between both two diamonds. So there was the confirmation, Ghislain, that most likely we can never be 100% sure, but I would say at 99%, we understood, we concluded that most likely the Hope diamond is the official avatar of a French blue diamond, a story that was suspected for a long time among jewelers and among the art historians, but we were missing the proofs.
And what is interesting, if you compare them two, we can see that properly the facets are different, so the hesitation was understandable because they took off what was around, sort of.
Yes, it's true, Ghislain, because in fact it took more than 70 years after the looting of a French blue in Paris for gemologists to realize the connection between the French blue and the Hope. But after that time, which is 1858, and some writings from Barbeau, a French gemologist, after that period of time, it was more or less assumed by art historians that indeed the Hope most likely was the avatar of a French blue diamond. But one more time, we were missing the scientific proofs.
Indeed. So after understanding the recut, the facets, let's move to the color side. And if you look at the inventory, at the indication that we have, both in the documents from the bills of Mr. Piton, the jeweler, or the inventory of the French crowns, we can see at some points it's written, even if you can't read French, diamant is diamond, violet, same word as in English. Sometimes it's written diamant bleu, blue diamond, sometimes it's violet diamond,
yeah.
Which is tricky for us because today violet means purple, but not at the time.
Yes, exactly. And we have even more confusion because today we know all those different colors for diamond. For instance, by default, when you have a very pure diamond, near perfect in its atomic structure, then you will get a colorless diamond, that's for sure. But if you get, during the growth of a diamond within the earth, whatever impurities, inclusion, atomic defects, or a combination of all of that, whatever, you can get a big range of different colors ranging from white, which is a milky color, not exactly translucent, and colorless, I should say, ranging to black, as you can see on the left, on the right, sorry, and including violet and blue, as you can see on this slide. So it was really tricky for modern scientists, for me, to understand why one day the diamond was blue at the time of the Sun King, and the next day, roughly, it was described as blue.
So the research will be to understand violet at the time meant deep blue, but we all know that blue has many hues. What is exactly the blue color of the Hope and the blue diamond?
Yes, I'm always suspicious when, you know, in historical documents, some people, actually we don't know if within historical documents, if people have used the color's name well. So because some people could have a different approach to color. If you go back to the discussion, the conversation we have with Cécile Lugan, you will see an example of two people living at the same time, at the time of a Sun King, and they could see the same diamond with two different colors because they had different names for the same color, in fact.
Question of vocabulary.
Yeah, a question of vocabulary in addition to optical perception. So before going, because I'm always suspicious with archives, whatever people are writing, I think it was more interesting, maybe first, especially as a scientist, try to understand the exact color of a Hope diamond. And this is what we have done. You see on the left a computer modeling of a Hope diamond, and you can see something very intriguing that I observed when I saw the Hope diamond dismounted from the Cartier jewel in Washington. That is that at the center of a diamond, and you see that on the left image, that there is a bright spot at the right at the center of this image, and this is where the diamond is the thickest. But in contrast, when you look to the rim of a diamond, where it's the thinnest, you can see that the color is very dark. So that sounds very bizarre to have an object that has more color where the thickness is the smallest and has less color intensity where the thickness is the highest. It doesn't mean anything. So I try to understand why we could have that. And of course, I had an answer because I'm a physicist originally, so I understand immediately what's going on, but I wanted to demonstrate it. So I remove all the faceting of a Hope diamond. I defaceted the Hope diamond. So it's something that you can do only on the computer. And when you do that, you see that the diamond is no more black, dark blue. It's getting much lighter blue. And actually, I don't know the rendering on your screen, but it has to be very sky blue and pale sky blue. And if we have those diamonds to turn, so you can understand where the darkness of a Hope diamond is coming from. It's coming from the facets that are making the boundary of a solid. And those ending facets are the culprits of the darkening of the color of the Hope diamond. So in fact, the Hope diamond, just to conclude, has two colors. For mineralogists and physicists like me, it's a pale blue diamond. But for gemologists, especially at the Gemological Institute of America, who have graded that diamond, is a dark blue, dark grayish blue, to be more precise, but it's an apparent color. It's not the very true color. It's the color that will appear to the eye of a person observing it.
So what is interesting is to have now the modeling of the cast and the piece and to understand what was the proper color to come back to what it used to be at the time.
So yes, you remember a few minutes ago I told you that I was trying to have the lead cast to absorb the material of a Hope diamond. It didn't work out, so I didn't resign. Too quickly, I decided to do that on the computer. So I loaded the color of a Hope diamond within the lead cast, but I didn't do that, with a simple program like in Photoshop. So I use a very good program that does that kind of work in a very serious and robust way. And this is what we ended with. So a diamond that is very spectacular and very unusual, Ghislain, and I call that an exact rendering because if you have seen my previous conversation about that topic, I have shown already several simulations that I've done since 2010, but I have improved the quality of the rendering, the computer calculation of that rendering. So you see the latest that I can show you today from 2017 showing a diamond that has a similar feature of a Hope diamond.
Indeed, we can see through. That is something, the faceting is fabulous. It is, and we're going to see a masterpiece of cutting. But it's intriguing to see that you can properly see through, as we saw in the Hope, but having some sort of star beams on the sides. But we can see white from the other side, correct?
Yes, exactly. So, and that's very bizarre because in modern diamonds, you wouldn't cut a diamond so that you would have windowing facets, as we call them in lapidary art, that allows you to go through, to see through the diamond. So this kind of star that you see at the center was very bizarre, very intriguing. It doesn't correspond to the current standards in diamond cutting.
But it might match with the desire of a king. And this is how we move on to the third chapter, because having the Sun King as a commissioner would never let by chance this sort of cutting. And we're going to see that cutting, setting, and everything will be on purpose. This is the inventory of 1691, and for this we have to think about how the diamond was set. And it is written that it is a certiclos, a close setting made out of gold.
Yes, exactly. So this is all the French writing from this period of time. Even for us French, it's very difficult to read. So if you don't read, but you see, the first sentence is talking about diamant violet. So you see, it's again different colors, because now we see it was not violet at all, but some kind of blue. So this is a cross-section of what we think the jewel could look like, because unfortunately, like Ghislain mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation, we have no iconography of the French blue and the jewel in which it was set during the reign of the Sun King, unfortunately. So we hope that a cross-section of this jewel, so you would see the French blue diamond this way. So you imagine the person that is looking at the diamond is more on the left side, and then it would the diamond would be set in that gold certiclo, closed setting. Thank you, Ghislain. And it was set with enamel above it, so people wouldn't see the color of gold, because they wanted to make it even more like an optical illusion. So when you would look at the jewel from the back, you won't see any evidence of gold, just white enamel, most likely. And then it was set on a stick, so we don't know where the stick was. So there's one possibility to have the stick on the back. So for instance, if the diamond would have been like that, the stick would have been something here. Or another solution, for which we think is the most probable, but we are not really sure. It's to have more the stick at the bottom of a diamond, as it is shown here. Because we have a lot of gemstones in our collection here at the museum that are presented that way, including gemstones that are right behind us, and those gemstones are from the 18th and 19th century. So it could well be more this type of position for the bâton, the stick.
And this will make us see how the diamond was set at the time. It was like an object of curiosity, an object of beauty to hold and not properly to wear.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of historians have written, or gemologists have written, that the king used to wear the diamond probably somewhere near some kind of tie that the French king used to wear at this period of time. But in fact, that's not true. We know that the diamond was, with that stick, was set in a big gasket made of gold that was ordered by the king in 1676. This casket, it's a big casket, has been rediscovered recently, and is now exhibited at the Louvre Museum. And the casket was open to the VIPs of that time, ambassadors and princes and others. So they could see a small exhibition, small by the size, but big by the content,
quality,
because it was all the diamonds of the French king, of the French crown jewels, were exhibited inside that gasket. It must have been very impressive.
Probably. And what is impressive, if you take it on your hand, you did a recreation of how the light would move, and this is where the way you see through is important symbolically.
Yes, you see that some facets are switching from gold color to dark blue. And of course, this in Versailles, and especially for French culture, it means instantly something that we know very well from our good old days at school, learning the history of our country.
Absolutely. This is the azure and gold, the blue and the gold matching color together, is the one of the coat of arms of France at the time. You can see it clearly on the facade of Versailles, when you can see the face of Apollo, the god holding the chariot of the sun, being the god of the arts and sciences, and being on the back of the dial, you would have the blue color. But this is exactly the same that you have on the velvet outfits of the king, having the fleur-de-lis in gold and the dark blue on the back. So it is a political meaning. It is a strong symbolic message that such king wanted to say. in his architecture, in huge and big, but also in his jewels, in small.
Yes, and now that you know that, next time you will be visiting especially the Versailles Castle, which I hope anytime soon, you will remember all of that, and you will see that the castle is filled everywhere with those kind of symbolism. It's absolutely everywhere.
And this is important because the figure of the sun that you see in the center of the clock is actually related to the fact he was nicknamed the Sun King.
Exactly.
So for him, he was the king as a sun, with all the courtiers and people around surrounding him as planets, as in the galaxy, which is interesting in terms of protection for the arts and science, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I can't resist to show you this iconography showing the king visiting the Jardin du Roi, the king's garden, and in that building in which are exhibited, you know, those instruments of science, those skeletons of natural history. And actually, this is here. It's not the same building because the original building that the Sun King has visited in 1671, this building unfortunately does not exist anymore, but it has been replaced by this current building. So we are sitting very close to where the king used to walk, as you can see in that drawing. Because the king was sponsoring not only arts, but also science. And more also that is important in that drawing that you see is that through the windows you can get, you have a perspective on the gardens that are still existing. They are right on this side. But after that, in the landscape, you see another building. It's the Royal Observatory that has been built also by the same Sun King just a couple of years before, because he wanted to sponsor all kinds of science, and especially astronomy for him was very, very interesting because he could remember the thesis of Kepler and Copernic, but also Galileo. You will mention that, I think, Ghislain, after that. Those models in which that was not the Earth that was supposed to be at the center of the universe, like most people were thinking at this time, but in contrast, the alternative model putting this time the sun at the center of the universe.
And it's a huge fight, we could say, discussion, debate in between, on one side, the Christian aspect from the Vatican, considering the Earth is in the center of the world with all the planets and the sun surrounding around. But Galileo was condemned in 1633 by the Vatican for considering it. What is interesting is that, being a Christian king, the Sun King had to make a choice in between the scientific approach of the sun in the center and the Christian approach, having the earth in the center. But his political idea of being the sun himself was putting him towards the model from the scientist, and this is what he would do in 1666.
Exactly. He finally approved the model, and it was not an easy task because he has to fight against the French church and also his mother, because his mother didn't believe in the heliocentric model, putting the sun at the center. So, but he was the king, so he decided, especially after his mother died in 1666.
That was the big moment to make sure the mother would not complain, probably.
She was powerful.
So let's move on to our final chapters with the last updates you might know, and understanding that research is always going more and more advanced on the restitution of this blue diamond.
Exactly. So we have a computer modeling, but that is that I call exact, or about to be exact. And then we try to make a replica because as a curator, no, I should say, as a scientist, I was very happy to compute an accurate computer modeling, but I'm also a curator, so I wanted people to see actually the object, because to see the object in real is more interesting somewhere as compared to a computer modeling. So we try with our friend Scott Zucker from the United States, who is a distinguished lapidarist. We try a first replica in 2009 that you can see using cubic zirconia as a surrogate for a diamond. It was no question, as you can imagine very well, to use blue diamond, because we would need a rough that would cost maybe $1 million or 1 million euros. So it was not possible, and actually does not exist. The rough does not exist to this day.
So question solved in a way.
Question solved, and it was not the goal. But the goal was more to use cubic zirconia. And at this time we used a blue-colored cubic zirconia. But it was a very skilled attempt. But after the time, you see, when you compare the computer on the left and the replica on the right, you see there's many things that does not match, in fact. So then we came in contact with John Atlerberg, who came to me saying, I have a proposal to submit. And it was very interesting. His idea was to cut a colorless replica of a French blue, not blue, colorless, and he put that in a very special machine, a spectra, as we say in nanophysics. It's a machine that I've been working many times in the past with it, and the idea is to vaporize no less than vaporizing metals, a special blend of metals at more than 2000 degrees C under high vacuum, so that the metals form nanoparticles that will deposit on the surface of a diamond. And if you calculate everything right, which is not very easy at all, the right recipe of blending metals, the right temperature, the right condition, and John did many different attempts to succeed finally. Eventually, at the end, so we could get a replica that was very close, actually, to the exact replica computed on the computer.
And this is how, with sort of an international adventure, because John Atlerberg was in New York, you had the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., there's here the museum in Paris. So it's sort of gathering all the information to make these replicas.
Yes, the colorless replica of the French blue was even cut by Patrick Dubuc in Quebec. So it was between Canada, France, and United States. And after that, we could have some press release in 2017, but also John made another press release on his side in 2020, in which we have made those replica. And actually, you can see on the left two images of a Hope diamond. You have the original in his Cartier, back to his Cartier setting, and also the replica that you see at the bottom, more on the left. And you see something that we have been trying to do. You can see even from a distance that at the center of a Hope diamond, you see a white spot, because we put the replica on a white tray. Right. And you remember what we have said at the beginning. At the beginning, when I saw the Hope diamond, I was very, very intrigued by this white spot at the center. That is only due to the fact that this white spot appears when you put the diamond on a white substrate.
And it's a very accurate replica indeed, because it has it.
Exactly.
I love the fact it is written the world's most glamorous quarantine project, which really reflects like today reality, but also how science continue to advance in such context. And having, as you see on the tray, the lead cast at the top of the tray, I mean, and from right to left, right is the Tavernier blue.
Diamond.
Then in the middle with its own stick, this is the Sun King blue diamond, and then the replica of the Hope diamond on the left.
Three faceting for the same original stone.
So the whole story in one picture.
Yeah, getting better with time. So
what is fabulous is that John Atlerberg donated to the French National Museum of Natural History, that's the meaning of MNHN, in September 2020, so very recently, and they are right behind us over there in this GEMS exhibition.
Yes, and if this is a more general outlook of this showcase in the exhibit that I hope you will be able to visit soon, more time, in which we are our message in that showcase is to explain to the public how gemstones were used as power instruments, especially for kings and high-level aristocrats, especially in Europe, but at the beginning of the 19th century, with another king, Louis XVIII, so we go from the 14th to the 18th, so it's
a big jump.
a big jump of 1 century, and this is the collection that is right behind me at this point. This king not only collected gemstone for French crown jewels, but he also collected gemstone as object of science. He wanted to learn what we every day learn from gemstone, but at this time it was very uncommon. He wanted to know what's the difference between a sapphire from Sri Lanka as compared to a sapphire from Burma. He wanted to know where the color of ruby is coming from, etc. All those questions that are now so obvious, but they were never raised too much in the past, and this is really at the very beginning of the 19th century that gemology was born. The scientific approach of gems was also born, and this is all the showcase that are right behind us, and the collection of Louis XIV, which is exhibited for the very first time in modern times, is really the transition between object of art to object of science.
And we have, as you can see on this case, the 17th century beginning of the gemstone and the whole research from the 19th century to today.
Yes.
But in between, there's the 18th century where the gemstones was set into the order of the Golden Fleece.
Yeah, you remember we spoke about all those errors, inaccuracies in those drawings, but we were very lucky because at the moment I started to work on this project in 2006, then another iconography reappeared. It was known but only before, but only for very few people, and it was the iconography of this majestic jewel that has been stolen in 1792 by Jacquemin, who was the jeweler actually who created the jewel. And thanks to those two drawings, because we have the jewel with two different versions, as you can tell, we understood what was going on in the different version of the Golden Fleece. So in fact, Jacquemin, the jeweler, designed two different models for the Golden Fleece for the king, one set with two sapphires and another one set with two diamonds. So the Pouget drawing that we spoke so much at the very beginning, which was the only iconography of this jewel during the 18th century, was not the right one.
Yeah, it was the rejected option.
The rejected option, and it has never been made for real. It was only a drawing, no more than that. So we understood that. And on the other hand, we had a new type of drawing that, if you look carefully, it looks like very much to Babst, but with some exceptions. And you can see that the upper part, roughly, of the Babst drawing is very much looking like the sapphire version of Golden Fleece that has never been realized. And on the other hand, the lower side, with some exception, is more related to the Jacquemin design, which was eventually created for the king in 1749. So my conclusion from that is that the so-called historical document from Pabst is a chimera. It's a mixture of different drawings. We don't know exactly how Pabst did that drawing, but he made a composite drawing based on different portions of the different versions. So of course, doing that, it's 100% certain to be wrong. Because when you mix different documents from different sources, of course you introduce errors for good.
And it was made of his imagination. So if we come back to the first option chosen by King Louis XV, we have what we call the masterpiece made out of masterpieces. It was celebrated about 1780 as the most beautiful jewel of the world's most beautiful jewel, because in it you have included fabulous gemstones, 3 of the major gemstones from the collection. The one in the center was a spinel. It's a spinel still present in the collection of the Louvre Museum called the Côte de Bretagne. It belonged to the royal collection since the beginning of the French crown jewels in 1530, and it will remain in the collection. Initially, it was bigger, but it was carved into this sort of dragon-like figure in red, blowing some fire in the center. Below it, you have our blue diamond, which is set in majesty, I would say. And on the other side, you have another blue diamond, but the ink, you were telling me, the ink changed from the 18th century to today, and we lost the blue, so today we have the impression it's not blue, but it used to be. So we have a 68 carat blue diamond
69,
down there. 69, sorry, carat, and we have a 33 carat up there.
You imagine today a jewel with 2 blue diamonds, 69 and 33 carats. It just...
The king really wanted to be visible, and in it, to make the beauty of the stone itself, he made invisible clouds to make sure that the diamond would be set in majesty. In addition, he set, not the king, but his jewelers, Jacquemin, hundreds of tiny diamonds to really fit with them the serpent tail of the dragon, to create the impression of the visual effect, which is at the top, but also had some diamonds painted in the back to have this impression of red fire, which is present from the mouth of the dragon. It was a method that was developed according to Madame de Pompadour, who was the favorite of King Louis XV.
Yes, exactly. This tradition to paint a diamond on the back was because red diamonds were at this time, but also today, extremely rare. So that was their trick, to get some red and very shiny gemstone at the same time. So Ghislain, we won't go too much into the symbolics of that jewel, because he has a... We could spend a whole conversation on what everything, why the dragon is here, why we have a dragon sending fires, and etc. He has so many symbolism. We won't go into much detail today, but we have published that in several articles. And the idea is more to tell you that, unfortunately, the world's most beautiful jewel, as they said during the 18th century, was, as we mentioned originally,
stolen. Yeah,
stolen in
1792.
Yeah.
We were over there. Remember when we had the people guillotines in the back? That's the building today. The people got in, took all the jewels they could, and they dismantled them. And this is how the blue diamond disappeared. But
actually, it disappeared in the jewel.
In the jewel, and the jewel were completely dismantled. Things were torn apart until a big recent project could think about it properly today.
Yes, so like we wanted to recreate the French blue diamond, the next step was to recreate the golden fleece, because it's a very iconic jewel. We didn't mention that all those technical inventions that were introduced by the jeweler at this time, Jacquemin, are very unique, and it's the very first time all those innovations were introduced in the world of jewelry. And some authors, Morel and Thailander and many others, consider this is the founding piece of the French and more particularly the Parisian tradition of high jewelry that is now so much known at Place Vendôme, for instance. So we started, yes, with a drawing, a gouache, as we say in French, a watercolor, because according to the French tradition, you always start a jewel when you have selected the gemstones. You do second the design, but as a watercolor. And then it took many years to realize the object after recreating rediscovering the old lapidary techniques, the ancient setting techniques that we have done. Most is done thanks to cubic zirconia. We have the 3 yellow stones that you see around the dragon. The red dragon are sapphires, real sapphires for good. But otherwise diamonds are simulated by cubic zirconia of different colors, as you can see. And then it was very important to show it in a showcase, Ghislain, in that exhibit, to show a more particularly how the Museum of Natural History at the time of the kings during the 18th century, or even before when it opens to the public during the 17th century, has been a place where artists came to get inspired by inspired by nature, inspired by all the objects that travelers were bringing back from Asia, especially India, China, Japan, Persia, and others. They were coming to visit the king's collection just to see those exotic objects, if we can say those things, because at the time it was very hard to travel to the Orient.
And this is why it is precisely in this third chapter of the exhibition,
yes,
dedicated to this jewelry avant-garde, that Paris used to be over there. And that's a view of where we precisely are today. This is the very room where we are, where you can see the piece with all these elements to see the evolution and the interest in between art and science, as you said.
Exactly. So this is what you are going to be able to see just in a few days, we hope.
We hope so. But this is not the very ending of the story, isn't it?
No, yes, thank you, Ghislain. We have a wonderful story to announce today. Is that thanks to the sponsorship of Maison Boucheron, who is a famous Parisian jeweler in Place Vendôme and in Paris since 1858, and more specifically thanks to his president and CIO, Hélène Poulit-Duquesne, and all the staff and all the beautiful experts here at Maison Boucheron, who have helped us since the very beginning in that project, also by allowing us to reach their beautiful archives, in which we have made many discoveries. Thanks to them, thanks to Maison Boucheron, the new insignia of the Golden Fleece is back to France and has been donated to our museum, and it will be in a permanent exhibition. So even if you come to Paris to visit us with a permanent exhibition where you have French crown jewels and many beautiful things to look at, the Golden Fleece will be transferred from the Pierre Précieuses Gems exhibition where we stand today to the permanent exhibition. So it will be available to everyone. Thanks Maison Boucheron. And thanks also to the École who allow us, and Maison Van Cleef & Arpels, to allow us to do this broadcast and also an audio guide, Ghislain.
Indeed, this is important always to transmit the jewelry culture as in the school we always do, and to go further on it, there's online and accessible audio guide, smartphone available that you can easily use to know more of some of the great iconic pieces present. It's a good thing in between the moment when we all hope you can visit the exhibition for good.
So you can connect right now, it's free.
Yeah.
You will get more information about 20 iconic pieces in that exhibit in 3 different languages, but only on the smartphone. It won't work on a computer.
Yeah.
You will get from Ghislain tomorrow more bibliography, but at least in English you can always go back to that issue of rocks and minerals that we have written with Geoffrey Post from the Smithsonian Institution. So of course, because of the American side, it's called more something about the Hope Diamond, but for us the French version would be more on the French Blue Diamond, as you can imagine, but you understood it's the same story. So that's why in the French version, that is unfortunately maybe for some of you in French language, but it's the most updated publication at this time. You can find it also on the web for free if you search for these references.
And of course, in this bibliography that you will receive by tomorrow, there will be included the book of the exhibition, which is also available in 3 languages, with lots of information about the whole displays in the exhibition, and particularly what we have talking today.
Yes, in bookstore, you will get the French and English version so far.
Great. So, as a summary of what happened, this is the last talk we have given. We're going to give it tonight, French hours at 6 p.m. in French. But we had 4 great topics related to the exhibition in the past weeks. This was a way in this very specific context to provide you some content of this fabulous exhibition, why you cannot properly visit it physically, I would say. So we definitely hope you enjoyed it. As a complement, the next talk will be a good addendum to what we discussed today, because early May, the next talk will be about the French crown jewels, and you will have our colleagues from the school, Léonard and Paul, who will be delighted to talk with you about the history of the French crown jewels. Great compliment to what we've discussed in the past weeks. So now it's your time for asking questions. Thank you very much for being with us today. Inesita, who's with us on the chat, will collect the question. I think she already sent them, did she?
I'm sure she already sent them, but I didn't receive the questions
It's probably the question of Wi-Fi.
But in the meantime, we receive the questions. You can see all the different address of social networks, and because in addition to Ghislain said, you will get also some other goodies from the museum, other conversation, other conferences that we have already put on the internet, but also some to come in the future that some of them are already captured, and some of them will be captured very soon. So we will try to entertain you. Yes, I have them.
You have them? Okay,
yes,
great.
yes.
Thanks.
It didn't make any noise, but I got it. So thank you, Gisela. Thank you, Inesita. She's right behind us. She's great. So first question. Do we know when the cast was made? Oh, it's a very good question. Thank you very much. So we know that it arrived at the museum officially, was invented in 1850. So it was made before 1850. Okay, I'm going to release a new information that I didn't want to mention. I did an interferometric study of a lead cast, and it's a very complex type of scientific approach to be able to see things that you don't see by eye, but the computer can see that. So we took a couple of different pictures of a lead cast with different grazing incidence lights, and by having the computer to digest that, according to me, we can see one date that is inscribed on the lead cast. It's the first time I'm releasing the information. It's written 1806.
Oh, that's a big information. That's breaking news.
Yeah, so it's breaking news, yes. So I will publish that. So it's still an hypothesis because it's not well written. Otherwise, we would have detected that long time ago. It's more like a computer interpretation. But so we think that for sure the lead cast has been made sometime before the jewel was stolen in 1792, and before the actual diamond was recut as the Hope diamond in 1812. And 1806 fits very well with that period of time. So I think it was made by some French lapidarist that I now suspect that may have been the person involved with the recut of a diamond, because we know that those lapidarists were very good customers to Henry Philippe Hope. And in the Museum of Natural History archives, they said that they have sold the diamond as the French blue, not the Hope diamond, to Henry Philippe Hope. So I know there's some disagreement with some recent studies published by Jack Ogden in 1824, suggesting that Hope has acquired the Hope diamond in 1824. But we are talking more about Henry Philippe Hope getting the French blue diamond and not the Hope. And we know that Henry Philippe Hope had many financial troubles in 1812 because of Napoleon blockade of Great Britain, and he had to sell a lot of things. He was nearly bankrupt. So that could maybe reconcile those two archives saying that Henry Philippe Hope must have been acquired the diamond 2 times, because it would have been possible if he would have been obliged in 1812 to resell the diamond, and especially to resell it to a London jeweler, Eliasson, from which we know the Hope diamond first appeared in 1812. So this is some information. So, Ghislain, what does mean defaceted?
Oh, a great question. It means taking off the facets on the computer.
Yeah.
This is what you did on the process, because you said the facets were, and they are in the lapidary world, they are a way to change the color optically. You took off by computer every single facet to recuperate the original color.
Right. So another question that is a bit long, but it's good. Could the star pattern be also shallow pavilion faceting in order not to lose any diameter of the surface size? More commonly today, but brilliant faceting was very new at the said time. So both could be a possibility. How do we know the gold was used on the star part of a diamond? So two questions, so very roughly. You're absolutely right. The diamond was nearly 30 millimeters wide of a 13 millimeter thickness. But the so-called critical angle of diamond is 26 degrees, and the facet at the center are, of course, because this is a linear optics, have an angle that is below that critical angle. That's why we can see through. But all the other facets are cut with a much steeper angle, ranging from 30 to nearly 90 degrees. So it would have been very possible, because I've made the testing, to use a continuum of facets always above 26 degrees to make something we would have done today, so a diamond that would look totally blue, like a modern brilliant is trying to do. And it's possible to do that because there's some margin to do that. And we would have kept the width of a diamond, the height of a diamond, with also the same thickness. So I think it was possible, but it was also at this time very unusual. So they could do that easily, but because there's another diamond, the Hortensia diamond, that is at the Louvre, who has been created, who at least entered the crown jewels nearly at the same time of a French blue diamond, who is cut, who has no such central facets that are acting as more like a window. So they could have done this. They knew the technology. I think they wanted that. So it was absolutely deliberate. So how do we know the gold was used on the star part of a diamond? Because at this time it was certiclot, and you can speak about that, Ghislain.
It's in the inventory.
It was the tradition at this time to do certiclot.
The art of mounting the open work that we know is from the 18th century. In the 17th century, which is a century earlier, the traditional setting was more closed rather than open, and it was a way also to embellish, as they thought, with the back in enamel, as you said, the gemstones when they were set.
So some people is asking me, please translate defaceté. We say defaceted, so that's the English for defaceted.
It might be facet off, if we can make it. There's no precise translation. It's like a word, a technical word. It's taking the facets off. I think that's the best way to translate it properly.
Okay, so I think we are all set. Thank you for all those wonderful, your attention and your questions.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to have you today. We're looking forward to having you for the next talks. And before we leave, I think there's a short movie representing the exhibition.
Yeah, stay tuned. We have, for several seconds, some more goodies for you. It's a teaser.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
See you very soon. Bye.